keeping those blood sugars low usually means you need to be following quite a low carb diet, right? Or not eating as much. And so that leads me to my next question. You've actually been following a plant-based diet and lifestyle for 5 years now?
Yeah. Yeah. So, actually, it's funny you say that because my diabetes team always would think the same thing, that, okay, because like, my A1C was running around 4.8% for a few years, and my insulin doses very, very small. So about, 18 to 20 units total per day, and always very low. And so my team was like, well, you're not eating any carbs. And the thing is, I was eating so many carbs, like my meals were basically all carbs, because I was on a plant-based diet. My insulin sensitivity increased drastically. And I'd say that while it's a really good thing, it's also quite tricky, because it means that such small amounts of insulin and such, a little bit of physical activity can straight away send you diving down into the deeps of below. So, before I was plant-based, I was taking around 1 unit for every 15 grams of carbs. And now on a plant-based diet, that's increased to about 1 unit for every 30 grams of carbs. So it's quite, good insulin sensitivity. And it's definitely not only being plant-based, it's also the fact that I am quite active. Weight training does increase your sensitivity to insulin, because your muscles become a lot better at taking up that glucose from the bloodstream. But yeah, it's really funny because I was always accused by my health team, oh, you must not be eating any carbs, when in fact, like, I was like, I'm probably eating more carbs than every other diabetic that comes here.
Yeah. So you've almost doubled your insulin sensitivity to carb ratio through plant-based eating. And as an accredited nutritionist, can you talk us through like the actual sort of science behind how a plant-based diet can improve insulin sensitivity?
Yeah. So it's still a bit of we don't really know exactly kind of territory. One of the big theories, or the things that's been studied, is that saturated fat increases insulin resistance. So that's quite a big one. And of course, animal products, a plant-based diet is extremely low in saturated fat, unless you go and eat a lot of like coconut and coconut oil and things like that. But of course, like with a plant-based diet, I don't just mean like anything that's plant-based. It is like whole foods plant-based. So not just eating lots of white bread and Skittles and things like that, but more looking at the source of carbs as well, which then brings fiber into the story. And fiber is also very, very good at increasing your insulin sensitivity, and even the effects that fiber has on the microbiome, which we now are learning that the bacteria in our gut have a huge impact on our insulin sensitivity as well. So there's lots of different factors that come into play, but I think the number one things are definitely the significantly reduced amount of saturated fat and cholesterol and animal protein in the diet that improves insulin sensitivity, and then the increased fiber intake as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there's all different kinds of fats. Obviously, there are some healthy fats, but then there's also a lot of saturated fats, which are the fats that are coming from the animal products, which then...
Yeah, and it's good that you want to bring that up as well, because in the vegan plant-based community, there are a lot of people pushing a very low-fat plant-based diet, and that definitely does wonders for insulin sensitivity. And I did that for a long time as well, but I also have a history of quite a severe eating disorder, and following kind of such a strict diet like that, whilst it was fine for diabetes, it was really not good for my mental or my physical health, and it was not good for my performance either as an athlete. It was just, I was not able to eat enough, eating such low fat, not eating any plant-based fats, not eating avocado, not eating nuts and seeds, things like that. But because of all this information in the plant-based community of, it has to be low fat for insulin sensitivity, I did have quite a bit of a fear of these plant fats. But I decided, you know what, I need to start adding them back in. And if that means I have to take a bit more insulin, then so be it. And so I did that. I significantly increased my plant-based fat intake again. and I haven't found any negative effects on my insulin sensitivity. Like it's stayed exactly the same as when I was eating very low fat. And overall, I think my health has definitely improved. Even just, things like feeling more satiated, and hormone health improved, and hair isn't falling out anymore, and little things like that. So I definitely, the type of fat matters. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that, because that it is okay to reintroduce some of those fats, even though we know it might make us a little bit more insulin resistant than
Yeah.
we would.
Look, from a plant-based diet perspective, like as a nutritionist, I know this, and it's incredibly, like, I'd say pretty much impossible to meet your micronutrient needs without eating things like nuts and seeds, and these types of foods, and enough legumes, enough even whole grains. So like it is really hard to get enough zinc, iron, calcium, magnesium, selenium, all of these really important micronutrients, without eating with the healthy fats, because those foods are what is rich in those micronutrients. And whilst it might be fine if you do that for a very short period of time, so maybe like a year or so, if you are doing it in the long term, then it is not healthy and not sustainable to avoid those types of foods for long-term health and the function of our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think with diabetes, we focus so much on our blood sugar levels. We focus so much on our HbA1c that sometimes we forget that we have other organs in our body that we need to look after as well. And so therefore, just to be eating like a very healthy plant-based diet, which obviously would include some of those healthy fats, we still need to be consuming those to improve our overall health rather than just diabetes. But unfortunately, our doctors will often drill into us just the negative side of diabetes. And I know the Mastering Diabetes, they're very big on that, eating a plant-based whole food diet for overall health rather than just focusing on the diabetes.
Yeah, looking at the bigger picture. And, I really love the saying that well-controlled diabetes is the leading cause of nothing, because it's so true. Like if your diabetes is well controlled, like you actually don't have anything to worry about. And because as a diabetic, like we are naturally probably paying a lot more attention to our health than the average person is, we're probably better off than most other people, just because we're looking at what are we putting into our bodies, how are we exercising, how is our sleep, how is our stress. We're looking at all these things because we need to manage our blood sugar levels. That if our diabetes is quite well controlled, then we probably have a better chance at a long and healthy life than a lot of other people. And I think that's quite amazing.